Okay, so why don't we get started? Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Great to see this big crowd. I know it's not just the food. That does help. Today we have our first for the spring semester of our extension seminar series, and presenting today we have Ellen Welch and Dr. Pam Rubinoff from the URI as the Graduate School of Oceanography, Coastal Resources Center. And they're going to talk about some work that they've been doing under a grant from USDA to prepare for coastal storms in Connecticut and Rhode Island. So it's all part of coastal preparedness related to the Equine program. And I'm going to turn it over to Ellen to get started. You want them to ask questions in the middle or hold them for the end? Which do you prefer?
If someone has a question, feel free to stop and ask. I'm fine with that.
Great. So go ahead, Ellen, and thank you both for taking time to do this.
Thank you, Mike. Tropical Storm Irene and the October nor'easter, which we probably have vivid memories or memories we would like to forget, back in 2011, 2012, they tested Connecticut's emergency resources in ways that had not been tested in more than 25 years. And both Tropical Storm Irene in 2011 and the October nor'easter, which had been Superstorm Sandy, and by the time it hit the Connecticut shoreline in Rhode Island, it was a nor'easter of 2012, left record numbers of residents without electricity, communications, heat, or reliable supplies of water, which is so basic to living. And the significant impact of these storms has served as a wake-up call to Connecticut. And our state must do more to prevent, to plan for and respond to emergencies and natural disasters. And that is excerpted from the report of the two-storm panel that was commissioned by Governor Daniel P. Malloy, which was published in January 2012. And here we are today, 6 years later. And Hurricane Sandy was one of the most expensive hurricane storms in U.S. history, with $394 million in costs. And it developed into a massive superstorm and created high waves and storm surge that repeatedly pounded the shoreline of the East Coast. And in Connecticut, we had lots of flooding. In each storm, we had over 800,000 power outages. We had downed trees and extensive property damage. And it took between 9 to 12 days to restore power. So this is something, even when we think of the storms in Puerto Rico, Maria, and in Texas this past year, it is something that we're coming to grips with is happening more frequently in the United States and also our neighbors in other countries. This is the official title of our grant. The Preparedness and Decision Making for Coastal Residents in Connecticut, Rhode Island was the grant application. And the universities of Connecticut and Rhode Island collaborated together to improve coastal resilience and to educate people and communities to prepare in advance for storms. And that's one of the key takeaways, is advanced preparation. And each state took a different approach to how to address this risk. And I will focus on Connecticut in this presentation, and as Mike said, that Pam Rubinoff will focus on the University of Rhode Island and her Storm Tools project. And originally it was a 2-year grant that started in the fall of 2015, and we received also a 1-year extension, and it ends in August this year in 18. And, during the course of the project, we had some staffing changes. We had Karen Delchek, who we welcome today, who retired, but she had put in a lot of work and energy. We had met with our team and discussed how we would proceed forward, had developed some preliminary project materials, and Pamela Rubinoff is the PI from URI, and Michelle Carnival from Rhode Island contributed to the proposal development and took another position. And we had 2 additional educators from the University of Rhode Island who supported the project during their tenure. Now, I might say, why preparedness and decision-making? And in Connecticut, a group of educators, prior to when we applied for this particular grant proposal, had met. We were through the UConn Extension Disaster Education Network, which Dr. Bob Ricard had convened, and we had an interest in supporting emergency preparedness as it relates to storms. And this RFA came along, and it gave us the opportunity to use our collective expertise to partner with our neighbor, the University of Rhode Island. And Dr. Mike O'Neill was instrumental in helping the UConn team to connect with Pam Rubinoff, which was very good and helped us to get started. And approximately 2/3 of both the Rhode Island and Connecticut populations reside in coastal communities. So 2 out of every 3 residents are right by the coast in the primary area that is subject to coastal issues. And it's also, because of the density in the population, it's important for property owners to recognize their exposure and their risks and the hazards, and to have a plan and to be prepared. And the team collaboration from grant writing to program and product development and implementation was very important. We engaged with local officials and community leaders to identify the critical issues. And also, a very key thing is the specific high-risk populations, because they're the ones that really need a lot of help. And as you can see, our team expertise covered a variety of subjects. People such as with financial and household record management, both Faye Griffith-Smith and Karen Pilchak were experts at that. Karen in residential water quality, Diane Wright-Hirsch in food safety, and myself with healthy homes, and Joyce Meter in agriculture. And Bob Ricard was our focus group facilitation and evaluation expert. And Juliana Barrett was our coastal resilience expert with Sea Grid. So we had a really nice mix on our team. On the Connecticut goals, our first goal was to compile resources for individuals, families, businesses, and communities so they could design personalized emergency plans. Our second goal was to develop, which Juliana did, an inclusiveness preparedness plan template, so it was town-specific. And our third goal was to market the resource information that either we created or links that we have to existing websites at the university, such as Diane's food safety website, the Eden website, and to use recognized resources through FEMA, NIFA, and also the Healthy Homes Partnership. Our fourth goal was to support the agricultural community through the review of livestock barn structures. Most people do not move their animals, their livestock. They tend to keep them at the barn, and there tend not to be a lot of animals right at the coast. They tend to be inland a little bit. And inland certainly, obviously, has its issues with storms. So the structure of the barn, how secure it is, how well built it is, especially a barn as it ages, that is something that Joyce Meter was able to address. We engaged, here's one of our groups, with community leaders. Here we were in Old Lyme. We had 4 southeastern Connecticut towns that we selected: Stonington, Old Lyme, East Lyme, and Groton. And it was great. We had the opportunity to meet with a variety of town officials, and Juliana Barrett knew many of the town officials through her work with Sea Grant extensions, so it kind of gave us an opportunity to get in to meet them a little faster, and our whole team went because it was a learning experience for our team. And we met with officials such as fire departments, chiefs of police, emergency management coordinators, health district leaders, and in some cases IT, to get a sense of their resources, the unique characteristics in their town, and also their concerns. And so we listened a lot, which sometimes I think can be hard for educators who like to talk a lot, but I think listening a lot is very an important part of the process. And vulnerable populations, and also in these communities, their proximity to millstone is a concern with a nuclear power plant. And the protracted power outages are another major issue. It's not just a day. It seems to be multiple days that people are out of power. They have low-lying areas that flood, and they talked about this in the different communities, especially even Stonington has had some great memories of things that have flooded. Having evacuation routes that are signed, and also in some towns, concerns for some private dams to fail. These are among the topics we discussed. And UConn Extension team members explained how we could provide educational support to them. And the leaders helped put us in contact in each town with other people, key informants. Then they helped us to set up our focus groups so that they brought a group of individuals together and they were able to identify these people. And the focus groups were conducted by Dr. Bob Ricard, and he obtained IRB approval to conduct focus group research in these 4 municipalities. 8 to 12 key informants are the targeted number that are ideal for conducting a focus group. And the protocol regarding the option to participate, we explained the process, the options, signing permission forms, and their rights as participants were clearly articulated. And East Lyme and Groton had the required number of participants. Stonington had 9, Groton had 8, East Lyme had 12. Old Lyme initially had 3. We came in early December. And then we asked one of the key leaders to bring people, and then we were kind of overwhelmed with 18. So this was designated as a listening session. And here's the summary of key findings from the focus group. The participants were generally knowledgeable of emergency personnel and emergency managers. They were generally confident. They were prepared for many types of emergencies, such as power outages and flooding. They were concerned with elderly people, the frail elderly, in institutions, and most notably those alone in houses without family or anyone to check in on them or to rely upon. And they were most concerned and troubled, people articulated, by power outages, which I'm sure would not be a surprise to our power companies in this state. Participants knew where to get weather and public emergency warnings and updates, so they knew where to look for information. And they expressed the need for information on various types of emergencies and disasters, and the preparedness information, and the workshops that might be appropriate for various stakeholders and stakeholder groups, such as the elderly and those living in big, large apartment houses. Some are private, some are publicly funded, some are by the state or through the federal government. For educational outreach, early on, Karen Filchek and I had piloted a program for military-connected youth from the National Guard. And this was replicated with some of our 4-H youth, and something we hope through Faye and I to expand, Faye Griffith-Smith and I, in the future. And Karen and I also piloted a preparedness program with the Center for Learning in Retirement. And as we were there, we realized we sat down, Diane Wright Hirsch, Karen Filchek, Faye Griffith-Smith, myself, we realized how we would break up the topics, because we had a lot of quality information, wanted to present it in a mode to the audience where it would not be overwhelming in the ideal number of sessions. And our audiences that we have delivered the programs have included military service members, active and retired, Department of Veterans Affairs. We worked with a group of visually impaired veterans, which is very interesting. And we have also worked with additional military-connected youth through the Guard, the National Guard, and 4-H youth, and seniors and adults. So those are our primary groups we have met with this far. This is an example of one of the programs that I had worked with and developed, Protect You, Your Family, Your Pets, and Home. And it emphasizes advanced preparation, also the concept of safety and accident prevention, and being prepared so that you can function with the anticipation of losing power for several days. And the family communication plan allows families to stay connected so people will know where you are should you lose power. This program, Getting Your Go Pack Ready, Preparing Your Kit, Financial Records, and Important Household Papers, was designed by Faye Griffith-Smith, Family Economics and Resource Management Extension Educator. And in this, she focused on kids. We cannot say it enough. It's critical for everybody to have a kit for every family member and pet, in fact, in the house. And you may only have a few minutes to prepare or evacuate. There may not be time to go to the store, or supplies may be out. And if you need to evacuate quickly, as we had we saw in California, people were told, get out, the fire's coming, it's time to get out. It's possible you can run into these types of situations. And having received copies of your financial records and important household papers cannot be overemphasized. And it's also important to document yourself with your family members. Have photos and have these with you on your cell phone, your flash drive, so you can document these for insurance purposes. Diane Wright Hirsch developed the Food Safety Unit, and she also has a food safety, as I mentioned, website. And pre- and post-program surveys indicated that most participants will report or tell you that they are adequately prepared with food and water in an emergency. However, recent studies of consumer food safety behaviors have indicated that 95% believe that you can identify unsafe food by tasting or smelling it, which of course would not be the route to take. And 23% of the study group had no refrigerator or thermometer to scientifically determine if the food was safe to eat. And 31% of the study group could not identify proper refrigerator temperature to know what the temperature even is. And that's what folks reported. And studies of consumer handling also indicate that even if they do assemble an adequate emergency food supply, they may not be knowledgeable or skilled in safely handling that food once the power goes out. Winter storm preparedness was another workshop that evolved. It didn't come from the focus group. One of the program directors at a group that Faye Griffith-Smith had attended said it was something that she felt was very valuable, because surviving somehow when the weather's warm, if we have a hurricane in August and September, is one thing. When it starts getting cold in the winter, it starts getting very challenging. And so I designed one. I focused on preventing carbon monoxide poisoning, using social media to assess weather conditions, and also dressing for cold weather, pet care, and keeping a car kit. Reducing storm damage to your barn was designed by Joyce Meter. And as I mentioned, Joyce designed a publication. She has a lot of detailed information. She also conducted workshops. And her sage advice to those at her workshops and everyone else who owns a barn is, just because your building made it through last winter, it does not mean it can take another beating. And a visual inspection will go a long way. Walk through with an experienced builder or structural engineer to examine the connections and roof braces. Jen Nadeau, although not on our grant team, had simultaneously designed workshops on equine disasters, safety trailering and loading your horse, and fire safety, prevent, prepare, and take action. So these were sort of simultaneously alongside ours were offered to the UConn community. Then here we have the template that Juliana Barrett had designed, and most coastal towns only provide links to websites related such to preparedness like the state of Connecticut, FEMA, or Red Cross. She created a template that provides key local information for specific towns and their services. They're single-paged. A lot of people are transients who may come to the shoreline, be there, storm's coming, they have no idea where things are. And so this is a fact sheet that can be put in each unit, and it has links to critical information, how to evacuate, where they should go, what route to take, alerts, news and weather sources, and apps also for smart devices. Now, among the products and resources, these are fact sheets, publications, articles that have been designed. Some are in the draft and planning stage. So these are products that will be able to be uploaded to Eden. We have our UConn Eden, our National Eden, and we can feature them also on our UConn Facebook and our UConn website. In terms of need assessment and program evaluation, this was not too much of a shock. Dr. Robert Ricard gathered information from the team and designed their original pre- and post-evaluations. And we found that for some audiences, we had to shorten the evaluation. So it ended up being condensed to a 10-question pre-survey and a 4-question post-survey. Most participants are very satisfied with their level of preparedness, about 87%, similar to a 2015 study that Yale and Sea Grant had conducted together. 34%, as in ours, do not really worry about storms. These are people who just think they're going to be fine, and that's a concern. And in our survey, 22% of the respondents believe they are well prepared. Again, they're thinking for a lower category storm, probably not a strong or severe storm with higher winds. And about 20% indicated they might take actions to improve their level of preparedness. What lessons did we learn and implications? It was a great experience bringing a diverse team together, developing community relationships. It does take time and sustained effort, but it's great. It creates a UConn presence throughout our state. The business community was a little more challenging to reach. We are going to be reaching them. They have an email newsletter, and we're hoping to get some contacts through that to be able to do some presentations. And residents tend to believe local officials that they recognize and trust. And for the future, we believe vulnerable populations are our target group. They can be identified by situational characteristics. Seniors, those who live alone, people with disabilities, people unfamiliar with the area, such as our military population may come from Kansas, not be familiar with local weather, youth and young adults who are just starting to have a household on their own, as well as people experiencing homelessness, people who are somewhat disconnected in society, new immigrants to our state, as well as emancipated youth. So, as a society, it's important to remember we do have a responsibility to really look out for others and for those that may be less fortunate. And I'd like to thank you.
here. Why don't you switch it for me? Where's your website? Great. There we go. Thank you. Well, thank you, Mary Ellen, for setting the stage, and to all of you for welcoming me. It's been really a nice partnership across the boundaries. I seldom come to Connecticut, but we have been on the phone and such. I also really value the fact that you come with your whole extension program. And in Rhode Island, where this played out a little bit different, our extension program was not really engaged in these kinds of issues, and so they suggested getting in touch with me at the Sea Grant program. My colleague is Juliana down at the shore. So it played out a little bit different, and Rhode Island obviously is different than Connecticut. So you'll see how we took this opportunity to expand preparedness. So this probably is familiar to you all. Trees on houses, waves. This actually is one of our business districts in my town. This tree actually was on my house. So I took it really quite personally. And more we're seeing this. It's not just the seldom Irene or Hurricane Superstorm Sandy. We're seeing this really quite frequently. So people in Rhode Island very much are starting to get a little bit more concerned. Although they would say that they're prepared too. So just for reference here, so we're seeing it, we're seeing storms. We see the trees, we see the water. We're also seeing that the extreme tides. And in Rhode Island, we have a program called My Coast, where residents are going out and taking pictures of high tides. We let them know when high tides are happening. Because for us, it's a different kind of citizen science. And so here we have 1 foot above high tide. That's down in Westerly at Watch Hill. And that is a high tide that we're seeing much more often. And then here it's 2 feet above high tide. So you could start to compare. 1 foot really is around a municipal comprehensive plan period, and 2 feet you'll see within your mortgage. And so we're trying to use these kinds of images to share with residents and decision makers that you don't only need to worry about the storms that are happening now, which are really difficult to deal with, but we're also dealing with rising seas. And why does it matter? Why does it matter to all of us? Why does Old Lyme take this into concern in Stonington? Because we have historic neighborhoods that we value. That one's in Newport. We have Narragansett Beach. Some of you might know. We have beaches that people really want to go to, and those are being impacted by our storms and seas. We also have cohogging and fishing here in Connecticut, oystering. And, this is really valuable to us, and our coastal culture is very much a value, as is our ecosystems. And so we really need to be looking and planning for these kinds of issues, not only for our own personal homes, but for our communities writ large. So, what do? We know that we have risk. Are you an educator and you need to be able to share with the residents that you're going to say, here's your flood risk? Are you a consultant who is advising a community on how to develop a comprehensive plan? Are you a building official who needs to get the information to the contractors and to the residents? Or are you a resident yourself who really wants to know, is my house going to be a good investment? So Rhode Island is we're very small. We have around 400 miles of shoreline, but we're very, very rich in a lot of the resources that we have. We do have different kinds of mapping tools, from a floodplain mapper from the National Flood Insurance Program to coastal erosion. How much is coastal erosion affecting the properties? These two issues are regulatory concerns at the local and state levels. So we have lots of those kinds of maps. We also have different kinds of maps, as Mary Ellen pointed out, that start to look at the future. And I know that Connecticut has some of these and is eager to enhance their mapping toolbox too. And so we're talking about that. Storm tools, again, most of these are coastal. So I know that we have 21 coastal communities out of 39. But we do have a lot of coastal communities that are in need of these. Storm tools really looks at different kinds of storms and sea level rise into the future. SLAM, sea level affecting marsh modeling. As the sea level rises, the wetlands want to rise too because they don't like their feet wet all the time. So we're seeing migrating wetlands, and if we don't deal with them, we're going to lose wetlands. And if we lose wetlands, we're going to lose fisheries. And then My Coast is that other tool that I just told you, the crowdsourced high tide. So the message here is that we have a lot of mapping. However, people don't know about it. People don't know which ones to use, when to use them, where to go, are they updated? So that's where we came up with our rapid PACE, rapid property assessment and coastal exposure. So rapid PACE, how many of you have used story maps? Yeah, well, I would love some feedback if you find them useful, either as a practitioner or as a user. So this is a story map, and we could go live if we'd like, that really shows all of these different, there's around 10 different types of maps up here. So it really is kind of your one-stop shop, or what I'm calling the convenience store of mapping tools. So you could go in here, and I'll go on to this, but basically this is live. It starts to bring in information from other kinds of sources. So we've brought in FEMA information and Coastal Resources information and Department of Environmental Management information and put it on this one platform. And the cool thing is it's all geographically located, and then you see here you could kind of do a story, or in this case we're really sharing information. So why do we do this? We want to improve story. We want to improve decision making. This project kind of went back and forth and back and forth about who is our audience. So we started off with the audience being residents. And the challenge was that we realized our decision makers didn't even have the information. So we decided to kind of change. We said, okay, residents will be safer if decision makers know what they're doing, and then the decision makers can share the information. So we went back and forth, and the end of the day, right now, as you'll see from our website, it really is for both. So I'm pleased to say, but it really does help decision making from the, and we've heard back from some of our planning board members, some of our town councils. It gives an opportunity to really understand the regulatory needs and what are the regulatory requirements. In this case, being a setback from the erosion or being elevation from FEMA's base flood elevation. It also, as I pointed out, gives you insight how to be proactive. This house is being elevated even more. This one, for sea level rise, this is during construction. It's not actually as high. I should probably go back and get the picture of what it looks like. But this one, instead of the standard 1 foot above base flood elevation, they went 5 feet above. This is in Westerly, which was hit hardest by Superstorm Sandy. And so Westerly was very proactive in trying to get their residents even higher. So the maps will give you that information. So let's see how this works. This is a place in Barrington, which is on the east side of Rhode Island. And we had reached out to municipal officials and said, hey guys, let us do some mapping for you. We'll do it. We'll see how long it takes us. The assessment takes us now around, probably around 90 minutes. So to make a report for them. So Barrington is a beach. They were looking at a beach. They had recently done some beach. They had recently done the Rhode, and they were interested in maybe putting some other kinds of things like a building in there for toilets and such. So they were wondering what they could do. So here we look at this. This is our first type of information. what can I do with the property? In Rhode Island, we have what we call water types. Type 1 is blue here. So that's basically saying that's a conservation area. You can't do a whole lot there. You could put up, passive recreation. This is a beach, perfect for a beach. You can't put a port there. So it starts to tell you what you could do with your property. The next thing is, so will my property flood during a 1% annual storm? This is the FEMA, the National Flood Insurance Program. This is our base minimum requirements for building, same as in Connecticut. So here, this draws from our floodplain mapping tool. It gives you information about, I'm in a certain zone called the velocity zone. So you could have a wave that's 3 feet or more, 17 feet above the ground. So this is the information that a building official needs to know. I have a friend who's buying a house. I told them to go here. They need to know. So this starts to give an indication of what can happen today. How about in the future? 3 feet of sea level rise, mid-century. Or if you have an extreme high tide in the nor'easter, you're going to get 3 feet of sea level. Your tide is going to be 3 feet higher. In this case, they're okay. So if they wanted to put a building up in the parking lot, they'd be okay for sea level rise. A caution. These things take, the data sets are very big. And so it might take a moment or two to see it on. I mean, we forget how it used to be. Right now, we're just so used to being things so quick. So we have to be patient as they come up. And while we're being patient, we have to realize that there's some other opportunities here. What happens after I retire? What happens after the rest of us retire? Where is the property going to be during the storm when our kids are going to the beach, when our grandkids are going to the beach? That's what this is, 7 feet plus a storm. As you can see, it's really quite inland from the initial one. And so we need to start thinking about that. For a beach, maybe not, but for the facilities that they're putting there, for a road that they might be putting in there, municipalities need to know this. We put all of the information together because a lot of municipalities might want to actually download this onto their computers. So we're very transparent about where the data came from. We went back and forth about, how do you get this information? We have consultants. Consultants are saying, oh, well, I could sell this to you for $200 and I'll give it, Municipal officials, citizens, this is free. It has been subsidized by our USDA college. But you can look it up today and it's accessible. However, we do have a special offer for municipalities, as I pointed out. So they can send us a note, and I'll show you how, and they can ask us to do within 48 hours, we will get them a report. We will put all of those maps together, and we have a template so that we can, like here, it tells you, here's the FEMA zone, and this is what it means. Whoops. This is what it means, and here's a screenshot of that map. So if you're a board member and you're going to a hearing on Friday, you can send a note to us, and we'll get you a packet. So that's been taken. It's just starting to get legs on it because people are saying, oh, wow, that would be easy. Easier if I do it. So here you go online, and everything is there. The interactive maps, you could go directly. Here's the municipal request. Click here to submit your request for a rapid pace assessment, and then information on where the data is, because some people might just want to look at the data. And so this is readily accessible to folks on the internet. What we've done, so again, we're a little different, and again, we're a C grant, we're not cooperative extension. So we do not have the breadth of, on my team doing resilience work, we don't have the breadth of expertise that you have, from a ag person to a home economics person to a educator and a water quality expert. However, we do have a variety of resilience tools around the coast. And so this is one of the sheets that we typically will hand out. And so Rapid Pace is on that as one of our tools here. And I assess multiple impacts to coastal property. So we're pleased to put it in with our toolbox here. And we're also excited. This is a program, relatively new program that we have, an education program. I encourage you guys to take it. You could actually adapt it to Connecticut. And this would be an easy education project for you all. Well, not easy, but they're 10-minute modules, and they're basically voiceover PowerPoints. And it really talks about from climate change to adaptation to knowing your risk. And so there are different experts in Rhode Island. We have them scripted out so that anybody could take those scripts and just kind of put in, and in Connecticut, this and this and this, and you put your own pictures, and I'd love it if you did that. And I'd give you all the raw footage and such like that. But anyway, so Rapid Pace is within our mapping toolbox there. So I encourage you to try it out, and if we'll take questions and answers, but I could run something live if you'd like, but we've gotten some good feedback on it from people saying, yeah, that's pretty easy to use. So our hope is that you work with it, that are different, from citizens to board members to businesses to leaders can actually use this so that when they're making future decisions about properties like this, they will at least know the risk and hopefully take actions to reduce them. So, thank you. Yeah. So, question for Mary Ellen, Pam, discussion.
I was curious how you reached out to municipalities. Did you do a push out to all local towns so they find out about you, or just curious?
Yeah, so so we're also smaller than this. But so we have 21 coastal communities. So I know most of the planners by name. But not unlike Juliana, who's our Sea Grant Extension agent here in Connecticut, as you said, Juliana knew many of the local officials. So we are actively working with those local officials. The harder part is how do you get to their boards, because a lot of them are very protected, like they don't want to give you their email because they don't want. So that's been a little trickier to get to board members, but we have gone to several different events and shared this. And so a couple weeks ago, I was at an event, a statewide event of land trusts and conservation commissions, and so I shared this. So the good news is that we have direct contacts in most of these in the community. However, the harder part is getting to the other people within the community. So we're working on that.
So actually, we have a project funded by CERPA, Connecticut.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So actually, we are trying to do a similar tool, like a simulation tool, and we are focused on the housing price, like the sea level rise, what will happen to nearby housing price, because if some house gets elevated, where some get
interesting.
Off, and they will change their view, right? The view of the nearby house and the distance to the shore. So we're trying to build that into a economic mode, economic mode to see how that will change the housing price and how that will affect the tax base for the town. Right?
Oh, I'd love to talk to you about that.
Okay. So I just want to know how hard it is to build this kind of interactive map. This is
easy compared to what you're talking about.
Okay.
So we also were very fortunate to have a variety of graduate students, and I know Connecticut was using some of their graduate students who were doing GIS to help make the story maps. So making a story map is relatively simple compared to some of those other. If you get, one of your graduate students who is taking GIS, they can figure it out in a month.
Okay.
Well, there's lots of things. The draft can come out in a month, and then maybe 6 or 8 or 9 months.
Okay.
But yeah, I could talk to you about that. But I think Juliana also, weren't you, Bob and Juliana? You guys were we're looking into that here in Connecticut. There you go. So it's ESRI, the GIS story map application.
Do we have the elevation data for like houses in Rhode Island?
No.
Which house gets elevated?
Not on this one. We do have several other projects going on that eventually might be put into something like this. So yeah, we do have some other. I'm happy to share it with you.
I'm wondering, what kind of evaluation you guys are doing for your project. I'm pretty familiar with what we're doing here, but I wonder how you guys are evaluating use cases and how people are actually using the data, which is just a personal interest, but it would be interesting, I think.
On this, we are not, and that's probably a mistake. I think that we're having a hard enough time. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. On our other project, on the Preparedness modules, it's interesting because you want people to use it voluntarily, and then they're very hesitant to give you information. So so on the mapping tool, we have on the module we've gotten some feedback on it, but not on each. So that's something to think about in the future. But we did have a focus group in terms of developing it and such, and so we don't have to.
So I'm just interested in either of the projects, actually. How many homes or whatever are on private wells, and how many of these coastal towns have combined sewer versus just septic, which, many of these houses were built before sewers were publicly kind of considered necessary in many cities. So when you start flooding these areas, there's all sorts of environmental consequences of, now you've got septic failures, septic backup, and of course drinking water in coastal communities, your well gets overtopped, and then you've got a saline problem in your well, and is anybody doing, Karen, or somebody else doing information on how do you clean shock your well to get it back in shape so it's actually drinking potable water? Do you know how many homes or residences along the coast actually fall into those categories?
We didn't do that. That wasn't the focal point of the project when I was looking on it. But we do have information we have for shocking wells and things. But sailing issues, I think it's longer. But there was information on it. We worked like big, but that does open up. That was something we did not.
Some Connecticut communities have forced some of the homeowners to be on public water supplies who had previously been on wells, and I know there's a lot of these problems.
I think more of and I know that we could get numbers and such like that, but I think more of the issues for wells for us have been the saltwater intrusion. And so I think that similarly, we're trying to get more community wells out there that can be managed in a little bit more inland, but also agriculture. So we're seeing, we do have a lot of agriculture still close to the coast, and so we're seeing that some of their wells are pumping up brackish water. I have a question. Well, no, maybe a discussion point. You pointed out about the businesses and some of the challenges. So it's a challenge to get to residents. There's so much information, and we're trying to figure out the best way to get to residents. And I was speaking actually today to our Rhode Island Realtors Association to try to identify ways that this information can get to them when they're buying houses. So that's a challenge. But businesses also, and Mary Ellen said that you guys had some challenges with businesses, as we did. Any thoughts on where you might go with that?
One thing we are doing is through the Chambers of Commerce. We have contacted them several times because at least they have a group of local businesses that they are connected to. They have some business after hours events, some have a breakfast. we also decided there's a newsletter that covers the 4 communities in eastern Connecticut. There are several different chambers of commerce that kind of overlap with each other throughout the state. So we're going to try to send them information so that they can get information at least through their email, through their newsletters, and see if we can try to go and speak at some of their events. Some of their events I have a table where you could go and meet with people formally.
Yeah, we've gotten some feedback from businesses, and they're a little nervous. They don't want to see the information. And then they don't have time, because we actually had a workshop on business continuity planning. How can you develop a preparedness plan, and what is a business continuity plan so that you can get back to business quicker? And especially for small businesses, I'm not talking big business. And we hardly had anybody come to that. And they said basically, well, we don't have the time to do this. We don't have the resources to do this. So it's very challenging. If you do want a good speaker for one of those, you might have to pay $100 or $200. So the Westerly Chamber did a fabulous job after Superstorm Sandy, and it's a great motivation, great ideas on how to engage the businesses and the communities. And so she has lots of ideas of what businesses need to do beforehand, and she's a really good speaker. So you might want to get her over to Stonington and, get that competition going.
That's a good idea. Also, I was informed that the Coast Guard had worked with one of the chambers and had designed a plan. They had a lot of the cadets working for a while with businesses. So I'm going to be getting a copy of the plan that was developed. But they said that was 3 years ago. And of course, the whole part of planning is we need to keep updating our plans. So she said this would be a welcome thing because we have, since 3 years ago, they need a refresher. So we're hoping planning on working on that.
I'm always cautious about that fine line between education and research and consulting and treading on the toes of private people. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you are walking that line sometimes with the services you're offering?
Well, we went back and forth on that. That's one of the reasons why we kind of made it for municipalities. This information, all of it is publicly available. So I kind of go the other way because it's all publicly available. A lot of it was developed at URI by Rhode Island government. And in fact, there were some consultants that were packaging it up and selling it themselves. And I was like, well, wait a second. That was very important. Why? Is it being subsidized by the amount of money that has been? So we go back and forth on that. So I think our feeling is that since it's been public information, we are combining the information into different ways and then sharing it. I did get a call from somebody who, so I'll answer the phone if somebody calls and says, well, I'm buying a property, and I think I have it because I said, can I use this for reporting? And so I said, and she was a friend of our friend, and I said, well, let me share with you. And so I just kind of looked it up on the page, and I kind of said, well, your property might, it's not going to flood now, but it might flood. And we were just talking about it. She did not buy the house. And she wrote me back a note. She was very thankful, and she it wasn't one of these things that today she was going to be in, it was like a block down the road was that big flood. But she just said, I'm 70 years old. I don't have to worry about this. So on one hand, I could say to myself, oh my God, maybe they come to me and say that I stopped them from getting, the realtor's going to say, I could have gotten that money. But, I'm using public information.
It was not 48 hours.
Yeah, so that's only for municipalities, but that's not for residents. So my feeling is that we are doing service for our municipal decision makers. So they're our audience, they're our clients. So we do that a lot. Municipalities will say, can you help us write a plan. So we go and help them write the plan, right? So I cost X number of money and the government's paying me or the university, and the consultant didn't get that grant. So we haven't been called on it. But we did our time to provide technical assistance to municipalities. And it hasn't been, so, yeah, not yet. Knock on wood. Right, maybe I should take out the screen. I did have a couple fact sheets that,
Okay.
if anybody wants to pick them up. I encourage you to take a look and see if that would work with Connecticut. We would love to come and help you guys do that. And we've been talking about how we could share their information with us and vice versa. So
Yeah.
It's been a good partnership.
Yes. Continue. Thank you. Thank you for coming today.